I'm about to spoil the ending to Baldur's Gate 3, but if you want some spoilers for this video, go buy this game. Baldur's Gate is easily worth $75, which makes it a steal at $60. It's not a perfect game, but its first act might just be the best intro to a game since The Great Plateau. And you can feel the incredible amount of work that went into this game based on how it reacts to every single one of your decisions. It feels so good to be dropped into a generic fantasy situation and find a solution that other games wouldn't even allow, like killing off a main character early or simply lying to someone. If you are looking for something that is the opposite of most AAA development, Baldur's Gate is for you. However, you do need to be able to stomach D&D systems that can be so extensive it almost becomes frustrating. Fortunately for me, I can. And I think that Larian has done a really good job of digitizing those systems into the game. That will ultimately cause an influx of board game and tabletop game ports, which I'm totally here for. But this really isn't going to have nail-biting fights or big epic battles that you might be used to in most RPGs. The fights in this game focus around breaking the combat with spells so powerful that AI literally can't comprehend them. I really recommend picking a class that can cast spells, because a wizard will be able to banish someone from reality and make your party fly. And they only get more overpowered, especially at later levels. And if you don't pick a wizard, don't worry. You can simply throw hard-to-kill bosses off a cliff. And that all feels really good to do. In fact, the only fights that don't feel good in this game are ones where the game forces you to play it in a certain style. For instance, this robot can only be damaged when it's superheated by lava, so you need to draw him into it. Sounds easy enough, but the pathfinding on your characters will have them run face first into the lava, like they're recreating the scene from Terminator. And that doesn't feel good, but thankfully Larian seems to have noticed that and avoids those types of fights. And gameplay outside of combat offers you multiple solutions to problems. My personal favorite being turning invisible and stealing shit. There's plenty of shit to steal too. So many item chests to find, even if that item does the same damage and attack as every other item of that class you've seen. Every little bit of the map does have something to offer in it. And oftentimes those things that you find will be helpful in quests. And players will be able to find these things using context clues in the environment without giving them some sort of overpowered Witcher sense. My personal advice is to read everything. A lot of books in this game will give you advantages when talking to people and dealing with certain situations. So if you see someone's diary in a castle, in a dungeon, or even an attic, go ahead and disregard their personal privacy and give it a read. And thankfully, you'll want to creep into every private area on this map. Everything looks great. The art style is a little bit generic, but D&D is generic fantasy, so that completely works. In fact, everything's so good, it makes the lackluster animations and the cutscenes stand out.
You didn't do abysmally, I suppose.
Whenever someone has to move, they look like they're in the backyardigans. I mean, you can tell which scenes they spent money on and which ones were rendered on a PS1. Not that any of this really matters, because only a pervert will watch the cutscenes that involve non-talking, because the majority of those are sex scenes. Real players are in it for the story, the characters, the writing, which is pretty good, even great.
Another case closed, another bottle open! Huzzah to Valeria!
I can't think about how hard it must have been to write responses for all of this different player dialogue, and balancing all of that while making compelling and three-dimensional characters. Each character has insane voice acting behind them, and have various backstories that range from being kidnapped by a cult and brainwashed, to being kidnapped by a vampire and brainwashed, from being kidnapped and then sold into slavery to a devil, to being a fail son of a politician who also sells their soul to the devil. All of these characters have great and clear life arcs. The only problem is the player. See, you can jump into any of these characters' lives at any time. The result is that you can make huge life-altering decisions for those characters, like choosing to practice bestiality or changing your religion, which is amazing for player choice, don't get me wrong. It's like playing with dolls who suffered child abuse and then were given magical powers. The only downside is that it kind of strays them from being a set character with their own personal and real lives. A good example of this is in The Emperor, who is a bad guy if the player betrays them, but turns out to be a day one loyal homie if you can keep it real enough to not stab him in the back. He is a three-dimensional character with a depressing backstory, but what does that really matter if player choice supersedes it no matter what? It could be argued that he's so complex a character that he's lying when he says he always planned to betray you, but now we're doing some real reaching. They're just a leaf in the wind who goes with whoever rolls a nat 20. I get that that's the main gameplay of D&D, but my actions throughout the events of the game should help me convince people to stay with me in life or death situations. Like when one character who clearly loves you chooses to do something against your wishes despite it clearly being a bad idea for everyone involved. But most games wouldn't even risk a character making a bad choice. And to the game's credit, there are a lot of dice checks that are lowered based on dialogue choices or affinity to the player. But it creates a narrative dissonance. But who cares? That comes with the territory of wrapping gameplay and story around player choice. I mean, you can die in a cutscene in this game and have to be revived by your party members as if you died in combat. There's just so much cause and effect in this game that carries out through the gameplay elements themselves, even compared to other large CRPGs like Wasteland 3, which I'm currently playing through. It makes sense that the head dev of Baldur's Gate stressed that they only wanted to implement ideas that they can go full tilt on.
Our first games were very ambitious, but we didn't really manage to fulfill the ambition within the game because we didn't really fully support the features. You know, that 0.01% needs to have their proper experience because they picked that subclass, and we offered it to you.
That's the reason why day and night settings aren't in this game. If there was, Larian would have to make sure every NPC had a bed and a nighttime routine. Animals would have to act a certain way. It would have been too much to do well, despite day and night being in past Baldur's Gate games. In my opinion, the perfect RPG would be playing through Baldur's Gate with more of those simulation mechanics like in a Bethesda RPG. In fact, as it currently stands, it feels like the game tries to do a little bit too much. Things start to kind of fall off once you get to the third act.
On the bright side, my engine finally feels normal. Like it isn't about to explode.
12 seconds later.
Had a nice break in the hells.
It makes sense that Act 2 and Act 3 wouldn't be as good because Larian polished the first act of this game for 3 years while it was in early access. And it's so big that I'd wager most players didn't actually complete the game or even get to the third act. And since most players won't even get to the end, they don't mind that things were missing from the game, like entire endings. Or there were bugs that prevented characters from having over thousands of lines of dialogue. And then once you hit Act 3, things start to kind of fray. The quests themselves begin to buckle under the weight of player choice. There's this horrible underwater quest in which you can save just about everyone possible to the majority of people, but you're still gonna get called a murderer one way or another. You effectively get punished for saving people. I guess these gnomes are so intolerant, they can't let a blind man live. So you might as well pick the side that's actually gonna have use for you later in the game. Or in the vampire quest, where after killing a close friend gone mad with power, the group has this to say.
So Astarion didn't fulfill his master's ambitions for himself. At least that means he's his own man. Though, I'm a little surprised he didn't covet those powers.
Like we didn't just had to do the whole Ides of March on his back a moment ago. It's an example of not being able to fully flesh out a player's choice. And I want to be clear with this, none of this is an insult to the game. It's just a side effect of its massive scope. If you are the person who sinks 90 hours into a game and then dislikes it because the ending needed more content and thinks that Larian needs to add an upper city portion, you're wrong. And if you can't handle a bug here and there, like an item not spawning, you're also wrong. When I rate games, I rate them by $1 per hour of the campaign, and then plus or minuses on how much I like the game graphically, artistically, gameplay-wise, or where I didn't like the game on those same merits. And I genuinely believe this game is worth $75 or $80 even. It took me 70 hours to beat it. It's so good that it's easily worth an extra $10 or $15. It has multiplayer, which I'm sure if I had friends who were cool enough to play with me would elevate this score even higher. But unfortunately, it was pretty bugged on my first playthrough. I couldn't save for my first 10 hours, so that sucked to lose. But even if we remove those 10 hours from my total playtime, it's still easily worth $75. It's so worth its money. It's such a good game. It's the opposite of what you get with a AAA game these days. The only thing I would personally change is probably advertise less with the bear sex. I know it was a huge viral thing, but I think the fact that sex is such a big part of this game actually removes any feeling of sexiness in the interactions at all. But hey, the game is still great, and sex sells, so pop off, Larian. It's a strong Game of the Year contender. With the Game Standard here at TibsTV, I'm Jonathan Rosenblum.